Hey everybody, Gina Minyard here for TLC Thursdays. My camera has a weird angle thing I can't figure out right now, so we're just going to be used to being a little askew today. But we'll go ahead and get started. Feel free if you're on. I'd love to see you, say hello. Getting started here. You can take a seat. Today we're going to focus on the psoas. Hey Wanda, good to see you. So taking a good seat is an important place to start. So sitting with some height. I like to sit on a folded blanket, sitting high enough to where, notice here, my low back has a natural curve. I'm always talking about this, how important it is. But if you're sitting without that and your knees are up and you're rounded this way, it's like whatever is tight and causing you problems is going to continue to stay tight and causing problems. So sitting with some height, and even if you're relatively open, I think it's a nice thing to do to still sit up so you can really feel into that more balanced seat. So yes, today we are going to focus on the psoas, the iliopsoas. It's a hip flexor that originates at your spine, at the front of your spine in the lumbar area, and crosses through the body, through the bowl of the pelvis, and attaches to your upper thigh bone. It's a deep core muscle, deep hip flexor. It both flexes the hip, meaning it lifts your leg up. It's a muscle that is responsible for helping you to walk, like it moves the leg forward as you walk. And when the muscle is simultaneously bilaterally engaging, it also is part of what makes a low back curve. It gives you the fortification of your spine, which is again why we're sitting up nice to start to begin with. And there's lots to say about this muscle. I do a workshop often on it called Psoas, Sweet Psoas Release. We go into a lot more of the theory of this muscle, but many people are familiar. It can be a troublemaker. When it's tight, as is often the case, it gets tight when we sit a lot. It gets tight from stress, from even deep. Good. Hey, Julie. Glad you found it. Good morning. Deep primal stress, as much as the daily stresses, and a lot of sitting. So I know even though we're in this unusual time, many of us are still sitting a lot. Oh, yay, Tanya, great. And Eric, hello. Yay, fun. Sitting a lot, right? So probably working at our desks. I've been doing a lot of gardening, so I've been bending over a lot. Just in general, we're going to work on opening up the front of the legs, hip flexors, and also working the proper strengthening needed for the psoas to function well. So again, there's just a lot of theory behind that. But we're just going to dive right into it. About an hour today, okay? So we'll get into it. All right, so take a good seat, like so. Refresh that seat, and sit your hands with your hands on your thighs. You take a few moments to soften your gaze or close your eyes, and begin to tune into your breath. The tightness of the psoas can even affect the breath when the psoas is out of balance. It can be part of a full kind of systemic, physical, energetic kind of just tightening, contracting, kind of gripping in the center kind of feeling, or even the breath has difficulty descending all the way down. So that is what it is. We're going to work our way through this, but begin by just as much as you can exhaling and just letting your pelvis get a little heavier, your thighs get a little heavier, and inhaling, trying to just let also the inhale descend a little deeper into the belly, into the low ribs, in a way that you're just starting to soften, to release, to get cleared out. Again, if the tension, much of our tension and our stress, some of it, of course, is the things we have to do, but a lot of it is around the uncertainties. We're living in so much of that right now, and even the fear, survival fear. A lot of that can be happening now. And that's part of how we tighten up. And some of it's an intelligent way of protecting ourselves. But we know also we can get too much of that and feel really cut off. All right, so settling, letting the breath work its way through you, and that already begins to release the psoas. Psoas release it brings us to feeling connected, feeling supported, feeling more in the flow of life. And we'll feel that in our breath as much as in our bodies. So welcome a breath in. And exhale, bring the hands to touch at the heart. So it's sweet that we can be together in this way through the ethers, and we'll work our way through this all important area of the body, but also of mind and of heart and of breath. So opening with the sound of one Om. Inhale fully. You bow your head, lower your hands to your thighs, and lift your head, open your eyes. All right, great, glad you're here. Hey Laura, glad you're here. Thanks for joining, now or watching later. So come up to a table pose, and I should have mentioned some props would be ideal today. If you have a block, at least one block, that would be fantastic. And I'll give you some ideas for other things. So take your block, place it between the upper thighs. We'll start there. And if you don't have a block, you can try taking if you have a blanket or a towel or something. And I do want you to, find something that you can kind of grab onto, so you can wad up a blanket and put that between your thighs, give it a squeeze. This is an important part of working with the psoas, working what's happening at the upper inner thighs. So elongate your spine to start with that. Give the block or whatever you're squeezing a little squeeze, and move the sit bones a little further back. And with that, the thighs turn in. We're going to do that a lot today. And elongating through the spine, even think about drawing your rib cage out of the hips, the top of the head reaching the other way. And just making space. This alone, you may find just being on hands and knees and working the thighs back and drawing the spine long, that alone starts to bring some length into this area that gets so tight and congested. So starting there, and then with another inhale, lift your tailbone a little higher, lift your heart, lift your head, moving into cow pose. Stay with the length of the spine, but as you exhale, round under, nice and slow, and start to tone your belly, and then deepen the low belly in and up, rounding your back, stretching it out. And continue with that. Keep going with that at your own pace. It doesn't have to be each breath. In fact, maybe better here to slow this down a little further so that you can really feel each part and feel how, especially here in cow pose, and you lengthen. Again, this actually can make length through your psoas. I'll give you some space to breathe in a little deeper. And then when you round your back into cat, what we get here that's so important is this tone of the core. Often tight psoas is related to weak abdominals. And so the psoas will sometimes take over to create stability when we want our abdominals to do that for us instead. So we get a lot in just these movements, including just getting some opening, getting some flow. So just take your time with that. Go at your own pace and do that for a few more rounds. You can even add a little bit of side to side, stretching, twisting, getting what you need there. Opening up that space between hips and armpits as you go. The space between hips and ribs. That's really that's so much of what we're going to open up today. So one more breath here. Moving through. All right. And so from there, just after this exhale, rounding your back, stretching it out, then come back to neutral. All right. So from there, remove your block, and we'll take a child's pose. Take your knees wide, point your feet back, sit your hips to your heels, and don't worry about coming all the way down. Just sit your hips to your heels, as far back as that goes for you. You know, use support as you need to. And walk the hands, yes, a little more out in front of you, but you can keep your chest and head away from the floor. And tone the belly in and up, and just think about grounding down through the hips, lifting the belly in and up. And then walk the arms over to the right and stretch out through your left arm a little bit more. So stretching away from left hip to left hand. You push down into the right hand and take a little bit of a twist. It just really changes the angle of the stretch there. Breathing deeper, try to take the breath again down and in. And this is stretching out where you might feel the breath a little more into the back there. And then come back to center and go the other way, walking both hands over to the left and stretching from right hip to right hand. Breathing fully, maybe pushing into that left hand to give you a little more twist. Slight twist, really, just changing the angle of the stretch. And this is stretching out this muscle here in your back called the quadratus lumborum, between the top of the pelvis and the rib cage here. And often sometimes we feel that area is tight, like that's where we might feel the tension. And that can be, the cause of that can be the psoas actually, but often those two go together. So come back to center. So we just open that up, that's nice. And okay, from there, come up to table pose. And let's just stand up. So take your time, stand up nice and easy. And if you have a block, go ahead and take that with you as you stand up. So just put the block between your shins in a similar way, just giving us some stability. Again, I want to just open up the body a little bit here before we start to get a little deeper into things. So as best you can here, standing, give the block a good squeeze. Like when you had the block higher up, roll the inner thighs more back. So yes, you're going to stick your butt out a little bit when you do that. But that's so important because often a tight psoas manifests in a body that feet are turned out, thighs are forward, kind of tucked under like this. I'm exaggerating my body, but you see a lot of bodies that stand like this. And the feet turned out and this tucked under is like the real tightness through here. So, actually go from calves, just go to the inner thighs instead. That'll make more sense here. So squeeze the block and turn the inner thighs back. The idea is just don't let your lower legs do that for you. Do it from your thighs. And then just pull your belly in above that, pull your ribs in as best you can above that. So you're standing, yes, you stick your butt out, but then pull in enough to stand at your center as best you can. We'll get back to this later. But for now, find the top of your pelvic bones. So find your soft waist, push straight down from there. You'll find your firm pelvic bones and push them down towards your feet. And meanwhile, lift, again, making space here, traction. Lift your rib cage, the back of the rib cage, sides of the rib cage up out of your hips. And so grounding down and rising up. Still turn those inner thighs back and then firm your hips a little more forward without losing that. Ground down. When I do that, you know what? I'm feeling my psoas stretch. I'm a little sore in my hip flexors today. They've just been worked hard, and I did like 3 yoga classes yesterday. So I can feel just by pushing my pelvic bones down and lifting my torso up, I actually feel a sensation of stretch through here. Some of you might feel that as well. So this is already getting the psoas to come back into alignment. To take that even further, keep your left hand on your hip, start to shift your pelvis to the right. Let me face you this way, I'll mirror you. Hips to the, what did I say? Oh my gosh. Hips to the left, torso to the right. There we go. So your right hand can stay on your hip. Sorry, got confused there. And go sideways here. And then side stretching adds more psoas stretch. Gives you a little more space. When we think about psoas, we're thinking about upper thigh bone is its attachment. Its origin is up in the back or in the spine there. So when you side stretch, you see how that space gets longer? So that too, you might feel a little more in that front of the hip. So come back up and both hands on tops of the pelvic bones, pressing down, and then shift your pelvis to the right, and you can reach that right arm up and overhead as well. Just breathe, keep making that space, especially obviously a lot of space now between that right hip and right rib cage. And breathing into it as much as you can, making that space. Okay, back up with the inhale. And just remove the block and shake it off. All right, so I hope that we have to kind of unravel the psoas a little bit first, and then we're going to get into some core work, and that's So come on down again to your back. And this is really such, again, like I said, a very important part of the psoas. So we stretch on our backs a little bit in cat pose, so we'll keep going with that. And then here, come onto your back, and again, if you have that block or something, squeeze it, because it's going to keep us in a balanced way working in the core. So press into your feet, squeeze the block, press the thighs with your hands. And this idea is that you can keep the pelvic bones, again, grounding down this way, squeezing the block so you have that sense of how the inner thighs are participating. But now I want you to, again, lift your rib cage out of the hips as you push against the thighs, but now add pulling back. So here it's okay to press your low back to the floor. I want you to really tone the muscles from front to back. Make sure you're doing it from front to back. You're not just, it's possible to passively just kind of roll your back to the floor. That's not going to help your psoas. But toning your core is going to help your psoas. So push against your thighs and tone your belly in, narrow at the waist, navel in, ribs in, and pull straight back. You can even lift your chest up a little bit to try to get all the way back into the lower ribs. That's at the very lowest part of your rib cage here is where the psoas originates. So pulling that part more to the ground, and then try to keep, it's going to lift up a little bit as you lower down, but try to keep pulling back. Tight, tight, tight to the center. Breathing, especially with your exhales. Can you tighten it a little bit more? Okay, then soften that. We'll come back to that. Remove the block. Separate your arms. Actually, stretch your arms overhead. And now take your feet to the edges of the mat and lower both knees slowly to the right. And really keep your feet strong, like you're still squeezing a block, and work the edges of your feet so you're not just flopping off to the side here. But lower your knees slowly to the right. And then think about stretching from your left hand all the way to that left knee. Meanwhile, tone your belly in more to the left. It's a little bit of a twist. Turn your belly and chest to the left, and then reach through that left knee, keeping that resistance in the legs. And again, here you might be actually feeling the psoas. There's a related muscle there. It's called iliacus. That's effectively, they often are put together, these two muscles, iliacus. So it's called iliopsoas. So you might be feeling the rim of the pelvis there stretching, and that's kind of more of that muscle here, but they're definitely related. So come back up to center and both knees to the left, slow and steady, always working. Think about strong from feet to hips, all that happening together. And again, that stretch then from your left, right knee all the way through that right hand. So huge stretch to the whole side. Again, we just getting all bound up at the center there is part of all this. So here we're just making lots of space. Right, so the, again, it's a little bit of a twist. Turn your belly and chest to the right, the back of the right ribs down. You want reaching through that right knee, through that right hand, breathing, opening, creating that space. Okay, so come back up to center. And here, this time no block. We're gonna do a little more core work here. So press into the feet. Again, though, take the hands to the fronts of the thighs, and same thing, especially with an exhale. We tighten back, low belly and ribs in, pull straight back. And here again, it's fine to pull the back towards the floor, and with that, the pelvis has to curl up a little bit. And this is giving you this deep abdominal activation. Deep and all the way in and back. So belly in, navel in, front ribs in. And then add to this, if you can, take your feet up off the floor, hands stay on the fronts of the thighs, and push forward and up. And then tightening back without letting that go. And still breathing and pushing forward and up with your hands. This feels stable to you. Try taking both hands to the right thigh only and push and pull back. Breathing in, really tightening in, pulling it strong. And then to the other thigh, so both hands to that left thigh, pushing, pulling back. Breathing fully here. Toning it evenly. Okay, one more breath. And then carefully release down. And now this time stretch arms overhead and go and reach those legs out along the ground. And this may be challenging if, obviously I can't see you all. I don't, a lot of you I know, saying hello on the screen, so glad to see you all here. But if you're watching this and, maybe you don't know exactly what's going on for you. For a lot of people, if their psoas is tight, it's uncomfortable to lay flat on the back, right? So just do the best you can with this. If you need to bend your knees, that's fine. But reach overhead in a way of making stretch. So think about toning the legs. Remember when we squeeze the block, turn the inner thighs a little more down, but pull your belly in. So those parts together, keeping those inner thighs back, but then toning the belly in. That's going to start to really stretch and balance your psoas. And that might be the key to not being uncomfortable as you lay here. Mostly we're trying to get a good stretch here. Okay, so then bend the knees again and just, you can hug the knees up towards you and just rock it out a little bit side to side. And of course that will massage out those back muscles, which when we have a tight psoas, we often feel that we have tight back muscles. There's even a complex of weak abdominals, tight hip flexors, and also very tight low back muscles. So yes, we do have to stretch those out, but it's going to take more to make things feel better than just kind of stretching out what feels tight. Okay, so if you need that anytime, you can add that in and just kind of shake things off anytime. That's always a good thing. Okay, so now we're going to add another very important layer to what's happening in the core. So just to be clear on this, because we've done like cat pose, really rounded. Here we've done pushing against the thighs and also rounding, but now I want you to come to neutral spine. Well, here you have a little bit of space between the floor and the low back. We're not going to try to flatten that down because we want to be at neutral. So that means turn the inner thighs down still, so low back stays away from the floor, but still tighten your abdomen. In fact, take a few breaths here, just pushing into your feet. Breathe in through your nose, exhale out through your teeth like this. Make this hissing sound. Through your teeth, if you have to push the breath out, do that a few times, and this is going to teach you to now shrink wrap the core. To contract the core, this deepest core layer called transverse abdominis, which we've been working, but now we're really sort of highlighting because it wraps all the way around your trunk, all the way to the spine, all the way around to this line at the center here. And it's like a corset, so it pulls it all together. And so here you can have your low back in its natural curve and still tighten this muscle. So I think that's really important because if we only do the core by flattening, then we need to do that to get some strength happening in a certain way. We miss out on this very deep stabilizing muscle. And this is such an important part of when this muscle is working in a more effective way, then the psoas is going to respond and relax a little bit more and work in tandem with the core. So this matters a lot. All right, so this time, try to tighten that area. The low back is getting a little bit of space. Just like I'm sliding my hand into my back here so you can see that little bit of space there. I'm still pulling, especially my ribs in tighter. And I also want to really feel that my lower belly is working. So then again, can you take your hands to the fronts of the thighs? And this might feel slightly different. You might have a little more space between the floor and the low back than you did before. But pull the navel in, pull the ribs in, push forward and up with your hands, work your feet, and really find your way to, again, that corset around the spine. You might even feel your low back muscles tightening. There's muscles along the spine that are also what we want to get stronger, multifidus. And you'll feel those here. Don't be afraid of feeling some tension in your back, low back here. This is everything getting stronger, working together. So breathe fully, take the breath into it, keep elongating your spine between your hips and ribs, top of the head. One last breath. Okay, lower the feet down. And you can even take the feet a little wider. It's sometimes nice to do a little sort of careful, mobile windshield wipers as you go, and just let that open things up. Still really staying steady, not just flopping side to side to make sure I'm not missing any questions or anything happening. Okay. Okay, good. We're still live. That's great. The internet's spotty these days. All right, so now here we're going to add some things to that. So take your block and put it on the flat side. And just put the block up under your hips. Again, if you don't have a block, just take that same kind of wadded blanket. Or you can even, here would be great to use like a couple of thick books. So it's firm, something that gives you about that much height. So you have a firm foundation, but just use what you have. And then here, I want you to take a moment to just, again, firm in with the legs. Find, again, more of that neutral spine. So it's going to be a slight tip down to the sit bones, but really strong at your belly and your ribs. You're not losing that part, right? And then keep your legs steady and pick up your left foot and just reach that leg slowly, slowly out, trying to keep your abdomen very stable. So still really knitting in. Reach out through that leg, maybe it hovers, and then some of you might be able to bring that heel down to the ground. Try to bring it down if you can. Now, if that makes your back do this, that's tight psoas. So turn the left inner thigh in and again, pull your belly and pull back all the way back into that waistline. So this is going to get us into a stretch of the psoas, but with tone and connection. So you have to be aware when you work with psoas that you're again just really staying stable through the core and not letting the, again, tight psoas, because it attaches to your spine, is going to pull you more this way. So pull back, and then as you turn that left arm thigh down and reach to that leg, feeling a tone there. And then when you bring the left leg to a hover and bring it slowly back up, you're actually using your psoas. That's the psoas, we want it also to be strong, right? It's never just about stretching a muscle. So then to lift your right leg up and reaching it out. Sometimes our psoas is weak. Some people have weak psoas, tight but weak, or sometimes tight and stretched out long. So you can stay with this cinch around your waist. Don't let that go at all. Reach out very, 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 very slowly. And some of you may have to hover the leg and then just rest when you need to. But if you can reach out and put the heel down without letting that cause you compression, arching in the back, you're not letting that because you're pulling back using the same core muscles. You're not tucking the tail under, you're not flattening this way. So what I'm not doing is like this, I'm not like tucking like this. That's not good for psoas either. You have to find the neutral pelvis in relation to your trunk and how it all comes together here. So that'll hopefully start to stretch out more here, okay? So keep toning the center, keep breathing. And then you lift the leg with control. You're going to feel psoas working, the muscles of the legs working. Pull into center, lower the foot down. All right, so rest, take a breath. Bring the shoulder blades a little more underneath you. We're going to come back to that. We're going to add more things. But first, from here, push down into your feet. Find these glute muscles and lift up into a little easy bridge pose where, again, you're going to start to, this will stretch out the front of your hips. But this is also about just tightening the glutes. And for this one, so I want you to know where neutral spine is and just lift your hips up. But for a moment, you can press your tailbone up just a little higher to really firm the glutes more. That'll go together. The glutes will tuck things under and push forward. So we want the glutes to be strong. Normally, I would not want you to be tucking for psoas, but this is just to get a little more tightness in the glutes. Then come back to more neutral, dropping the sit bones, lowering your hips down. All right, let's just move the block out of the way and take your legs up, knees a little wider, stretch it out. Right. Okay. Rock it out a little bit. All right, so again, what you're getting here is to balance the psoas and therefore to create release requires a lot of core awareness, core strength on all sides. And then to start to even move your psoas, your legs in relationship to that core strength. Just try that here. So what that's going to look like is we'll go back to this abdominal bracing one more time. We'll press the feet into the ground. Again, neutral spine, low back a little bit off the floor. Belly and ribs in. Lift your feet off the floor, hands on the fronts of thighs. Maybe stay here the whole time. But we're going to try to bring the legs into some motion. So you can press your arms into the floor. And then try, like we did before, just the left leg, maybe you just barely move it, barely reach, just keep it the knee bent, maybe you'll just lightly touch or not, and bring it back up. You can try the right side, keeping your abdomen neutral. Not flat to the floor, but also not, very importantly, not hiking away from the floor. That would be all tight psoas. You're training your psoas to lengthen, so keep going side to side. Some of you will be able to reach out further, all the way to a hover. All right, nice and slow. Training your abdominals to pull in so tight. Wrap that corset strength and hold to that as you reach that leg out long. So you have to build up your strength to that. Just be really clear. Maybe even have your hands, like I like to touch my abdomen and be like, okay, it's all working evenly. I'm not letting my back arch more. And over time, you'll build up the strength of your hip flexors and relationship to. So one more time with the right leg. Just keep alternating. Right leg down and up, pause. I want to give you one more option. After this, we're going to move on into some more stretchy poses. Right? We have to get this happening first. So then you can do that again. And again, some of you are going to start, again, just to show you, some of you will just start with like just small movements, right? And that's like, you may have to rest and then keep going with that. You have to build up to that. Then you might have to build up to this. You can bring the block under your hips like we did before. Make sure your sit bones are tipped a little down, your tongue and belly and ribs in. You can push in those arms. And then even here, take both legs up. And then you can do the same thing. You can start to work out nice and slow. Maybe don't go quite that far at first. Maybe just do a little bit of movement. And then if that is too much, you go back once again to what we did before, both no block, just hips on the floor. So building up your strength here, stay with your breath, strong through your center, reaching the legs in relationship to that. And some of you, it's like, yeah, if you're getting good at that and that feels good, yeah, I can go all the way down, right? That's going to start to stretch and strengthen your psoas at the same time, right? You're getting this tensile strength in relationship to your core. Now again, you might have to build up to that, so just be really clear on what you're feeling. Are you going to yell? Are you going to feel your low back muscles? Probably. So do a couple more times at your own pace. You might feel your low, and just rest when you need to. Like I'm resting right now. I've done a lot of yoga this week. So I'm good. You guys do a couple more. If you feel your low back burning a little bit, I'm actually okay with that, as long as it feels like this sort of part of your whole core working together. If you feel too much compression, like especially if you feel yourself being pulled this way, it's too much. You have to really keep that balanced. Okay, so even amount of alternation, both feet on the floor, rest for a moment here, and just rest. Like it makes a space between hips and armpits. Take a big breath, so your rib cage moves away from the hips, but stay in the descent, as if you were still pushing on the thighs, and just rest in all that space you've made. Okay. Excellent. So lift your hips up carefully, lower the pelvis back to the floor, and then again, you can take those knees up and give yourself a squeeze. And yeah, if you're feeling that tension in your back, this will massage that out. Over time, you're going to feel that your back is just getting stronger, like every other part of your core, and in this balanced relationship. So that's something to look forward to. Okay. So then lay on your back, go and stretch those legs out, and we're going to do a little more from here. And this will also stretch the psoas in a different way. So we're not going to have as much, we're not going to do that same kind of movement, one bit of that. So lift up for a second and look at your feet. So maybe take fingertips behind your head. Here we go. Can't do too much core work. You want your feet pointing straight up. Legs can be together, that feels okay to you, or keep your legs apart, that's also fine. But again, point those feet up, press a little more through your big toes, and then lower back down. Now remember when we stood up and I had you squeeze the block? Squeeze in and turn the inner thighs towards the floor. And you might even feel like when I do that, I turn my inner thighs down, I actually feel my psoas. That's a good thing. It's like the inner thighs turning down, your psoas is doing that. It's from the inner edge. It's also your inner thighs themselves. But it's activating the psoas in a balanced way. So inner thighs turn down, but then belly in, ribs back, and you can really pull those ribs back, because here, if you keep your thighs pressing, it's going to keep things balanced, and now when you pull your belly and pull your ribs back, like wow, it's going to be this deep, activated core engagement, and this is what we want. So keep making space between hips and ribs, and then press into that left leg more. And in the similar way, bend your right leg up towards you with control, and release your fingers behind the thigh, just pause. So not pulling in, I actually want you to push forward into the hands. And this left leg, keep turning the inner thigh down. And as you pull your ribs back, just by lifting this right leg up, you might feel, once again, a little more stretch to that left leg. This makes this left leg stretch a little deeper. You can stay there. With a knee bend, push into the hands. You can also stretch that leg a little straighter. Give the hamstring a little stretch. It's not necessarily a related area to the psoas, but we want the hamstrings to be balanced. And when the hip flexors are more open, often the hamstrings can release better. Again, a lot of theory there to explain, but just know that happens. So you can bend that knee carefully, push into the arms, and can you again control from your strong core, lowering that leg down. Very good. Push into that leg, turn the inner thigh down, and then slowly bend your left leg up. Nice and easy. Hands on behind that thigh. Pause for a moment. Notice that right leg. If it's relaxing and flopping to the side, you see the same thing happens here. That thigh will lift and turn out. So by toning in from foot to hip and turning the inner thigh down, and you stay connected into this deep, important sort of ravine of the body. Pushing into the hands with that left leg, tighten that left glute, and you can stretch that leg a little straighter. Some of you might, yes, be feeling a hip flexor stretch through here, and deep into that psoas when you're turning the inner thigh down and pulling your belly and your ribs more back. And that's Just a very simple way to feel both strength and release through the psoas. All right, rebend that knee carefully, press your arms into the floor, and reach that leg out slowly. Shake it off and relax for a moment. Take your legs out wider, let them just roll out to the sides. And notice, are you feeling more ease in your back, if that's, you're not used to laying flat on your back comfortably. But already we've really been unraveling the psoas, so maybe that feels more comfortable. All right, so carefully bend your knees up. Either spine will roll to one side, but here we'll stretch out the back even a little bit more. You can take the knees wider up towards your chest, tuck your chin, and like a cat pose, you can flex upwards. It's even like a child, like we do in child's pose. But stretch out a little more for your whole back there, rounding the back. Okay, and then either roll to one side from there, or you can carefully rock up into a seat. Okay, so come up to table pose and have your block in front of you. We're going to do kind of a interesting psoas release here. You might need to pad the knees. If you have a blanket, you can put that under the knees. If you don't have a blanket, just put an extra fold in the mat, right? That'll give you some cushioning if you need it. All right. So we're going to put together stretching the hip flexor with the side stretch piece we talked about. So this is going to be a little awkward. I'm going to start, we'll start with, so have that block facing kind of forward. And then kneeling, and this is a little awkward to get into, so you can take one hand to the side, and you're going to put your left foot on top of the right block. Okay, I'm sorry, not the right block, the block, right? So but then this right thigh is going to stay vertical, right? So we're not leaning forward like this in a lunge, we're staying vertical, right? And even those toes tucked under behind you. So similar to what we were practicing, laying on our backs, I want you to squeeze into the middle and keeping this thigh vertical, think about turning the inner thigh back. Like when you're squeezing the block, turn the inner thigh back, and then tone through your center in that same way. Hands can be on hips and just lift the torso then up from there. Then, keeping your ribs strong, all that happening, so you notice, just let me show you my body, move my arm out of the way. It's like I'm not tucked like this, right? That just imbalances the core. So again, inner right thigh back, tighten the abdomen, tighten the glutes, but don't thrust under like this, right? So if you look down, you'll see you're vertical here, and that inner thigh, it should be a little hollow at the groin here, not hard, pushed forward. So just find your way as best you can. Just hands and hips lifting the torso up. You might start to feel more of a stretch through that inner thigh. Then if you can, if you feel balanced here, stretch your arm just straight overhead. Pull the ribs in, but then just lifting up out of the hips. And the arms overhead are just kind of lift with that. And then option to take your left hand, take the right wrist, and now add a little side stretch over to the left. Keep turning the inner right thigh back, pulling your ribs back, and then as you go sideways, again, you're increasing the distance between the origin and the attachment of the psoas. So you might really get in there. I want you to feel, can you turn the inner thigh back? Can you pull your ribs back? And then you're just adding a sideways stretch. Okay, come back up nice and slow, lower the arms. Okay, then you might lean to the side to just carefully come out of that. All right, shake it off. So that's a pretty subtle, it's like doing a lunge. Seems subtle, but it really gets in there. So move the block to the other side, put your right foot up on that block. Take your time here getting set up, right? So that left leg vertical, right? Toning to the middle, and turn the inner thigh back. It's a little bit like you're sticking your butt out, but it's from the strength of your leg. So squeeze in like you're squeezing a block, turn that left inner thigh back, and then make sure you're getting tone belly and ribs in so much. Right? And then grounding through your hips, lifting the rib cage out of the hips, which doesn't mean you're going forward with the ribs, it just means you're lifting up. Both sides evenly. Belly and ribs in, throat back. And then if you do the other side, you can add lifting arms as a way of just lifting everything, your whole rib cage up higher. Keep turning that left inner thigh back, belly and ribs in. And then if you did the other side, the right hand can hold that left wrist and add just a little small side bend over to the side. Where again, as you keep turning that left inner thigh back, tightening that right hip in, Lifting your belly. Yes, in strong and not tucking under, just pulling that, tightening that corset around your waist. Wow, I'm getting a massive stretch on this side. I feel like I'm tighter on this side. So back up, maybe you're noticing that. That's, of course, totally common. To lower the arms, use maybe hand on the floor to help yourself come out of that. All right. So stand up for a moment, and just I invite you to, after that, just stand up and shake it off for a moment. Man, did you hear that breath? That big, like, that's release, right? That's like the feeling of, okay, now my breath can descend more. There's more space between hips and ribs. Maybe feel heavier through your feet. All right, so that's a good thing. Let's add in a very important stretch to the quads. So often, hip flexors are up here, they cross the hip, the quadriceps go down the leg further. One of the quads crosses your hips. It's also a hip flexor, more surface hip flexor. But tight quads often go together with tight psoas for obvious reasons, sitting a lot. So I'm going to turn this way because I want you'll see a little bit better what's going to happen here. Start in table pose and just slide your right knee towards your right wrist. If this is not possible for your front knee, we're not going to do big pigeon pose. It's more about just you can point that foot back, right? You're squeezing that heel in. It's a pretty neutral position for that knee. And then we will bend in that back leg this way. Now, if that's too much for you, you can just try laying on your belly and just bending the left leg in like this. But you'll get a deeper stretch if you add that right leg forward. So I'm going to stay here and just modify if you need to. So point that foot back, and yes, you want to go ahead and slide back a little further. Now remember the complex I was talking about, like often we get very tight in hip flexors, but also really weak in our bellies, and really that pulls on our back, low back this way, part of low back pain complex. So make your legs strong, scissoring with the legs, like we did throughout a lot of class. Pull your belly in, and then even tighten the glutes. Now we're not trying to tuck under, but tighten the glutes and push forward a little with your pelvis. And just lifting up here, this is another psoas stretch. In fact, it's like a big psoas stretch because now we're moving into more of this extension of the hip. Extension is the opposite of flexion, so it's just, but keep it strong with that. Still think about turning the inner thigh up, toning the belly in, that tighten the glutes. And then the quad stretch is lean forward into your right hand, reach back and grab that foot, try to keep the edge of the foot strong. So you can lean forward as much as you need to try to close the knee here, right? So move your hip to your heel. It's okay to lift your butt up higher to close the joint, and then tone the glute though and push your pelvis more forward. So what I'm saying is try to close the knee. So you're not just holding the foot up like this and sinking the pelvis down. That actually starts to overstretch the hip flexor, but instead come up this way and you get down into the belly of the muscle more, the belly of the quad, the belly of the beast. Tighten the glutes, tone your core. All right, carefully release that, and we'll switch it out. So left knee forward and top of the foot, or again, you're just going to lay on your belly and you'll pull the right heel to the hip in the same way. You'll work the actions in the same way. Now take a few breaths here, and again, stretching is never just, okay, make a shape and sink down into it, but rather here, make this shape, but work those same actions, like we did laying on our back. So squeeze in, that back leg is, the inner thigh turns up to the ceiling, because we're spacing down. And tone your belly in and up, tighten the glutes again. And even here, you can gently lift up higher, and okay, a big stretch in the hip flexors. Elongating through. Again, I'm getting a big stretch, because I'm already sore there, so I really feel it. Okay. So then that left hand to the center and lean forward, slowly bend that back leg in and kick the foot into the hand as you drag the knee forward and across the midline this way. So you're still like you're squeezing a block and turning the inner thigh back, but then tighten the glutes strongly, tone your belly in and up strongly. You'll feel the stretch in your quads should deepen with that. You should feel more stretch when you're pressing this forward, lifting your belly. That's how you know it's working. And you're working to balance out that complex of tight quads, tight hip flexors, and weak core. All right, so carefully release that. And come into table pose. And if down dog is a regular pose for you, just do a down dog to lengthen out the legs. If that's a more complicated pose for you, you can always just do one leg at a time like this. You can push back and do the other. But in your down dog, if you're doing down dog, think about bending your knees. And like we did at the very beginning, squeeze as if you're squeezing a block, stretch your hips up higher, but resist the torso, the rib cage, the top of the head the other way. So just make traction, make space with that. Okay, and then come back down to table and take a seat. So we're going to add into this a twist. It's sort of different. This is a weird twist. It's not a typical shape that you've probably seen before. So your left leg, it's not a classic yoga pose, I'll say it that way. So you can bring your left heel, sort of like you're sitting in a bound angle pose on this left side. Now it looks like the right side here. Pull that leg in. And then just the other foot's going to be just kind of right in front of that ankle. So the left heel is, pull in as much as it goes for you. That right foot's going to be in front of that. And then you're going to walk that right hand way back behind you and pause with that left hand on the right knee. So you could sit up on a blanket here if you need that height. But if you walk the right hand far enough back, it's what I want you to get here is, again, that curve in the low back. And this will also give you a kind of a different release for the psoas. What I mean by that is, even here, squeezing with your legs. Think about turning this inner left thigh, even the inner right thigh a little more down. The sense of making that low back curve. And pull your ribs in very tight on the right. And then push down through the right hip and forward through that right knee. And as you twist, you want to feel this really in the low back by curving the low back in and resisting the legs, pushing down into right hip and right foot. When you twist, you might feel there's like on one side of your back, that whole left side widens out to the left, but the right side is kind of widening out to the right. You're kind of just widening out the low back in this twist, this version of this twist. All right, so untwist from there, and if that's a little mysterious, it's okay. It took me a while to figure out. My teacher, Desiree Ramban, was talking about her, what she was teaching. I was like, what are you talking about? Anyway, so eventually you'll get it. Try to bring the right heel more in front of the hip. The left foot kind of lines up in front of that with the foot pretty far out in front of you, and the other hand comes pretty far back. Don't be afraid to lean back a little bit. Breathe. And the idea then is to use your legs, squeeze in with your legs, use your legs to curve the low back in and up, but still pull your belly in, and especially on the left side, your ribs in. And then as you're twisting, think about driving down into the left hip and forward through your left knee. And just turn, turn, turn. And eventually you'll feel that this kind of widens, pulls the low back kind of left to right, a little bit apart. And you get this unraveling at the core there. Okay, untwist, nice and easy. And then just stretch the legs out in front. You can lean back with the hands to stretch your legs out from there. All right, so then, let's see, I'm looking at the time. We're getting close to time here. So let's come back to, so let's see this. Let me, for the last couple moments here, let me show you. Come up to table pose and step your right foot up between your hands. So then how do we, shifting gears, we've done a lot of good work on the psoas. Then how do we work with the psoas like a regular yoga class? So if you right foot forward and bring your right hand on your thigh, which is a psoas stretch here. But with what we've been learning, we want to be careful not to just sink down and tuck under this way. This overstretches the hip flexor. So just in the same way, scissor in with your legs and turn that left inner thigh back, top of thigh back. This right glute, you have to really tighten under. Yes, tone the core so much. Then use your front leg, bending deeper. Then you can shift forward into it and start to get more stretch. But watch what I'm not doing. I'm not going to just drop down and press forward. Okay? So it feels like, go ahead and switch it out. I'll face this other way just to see the back leg more. What you get used to is the feeling of tone, and those of you who are very flexible in your bodies, it's like it's easy just to kind of hang down the joints and be, really dramatic like that. But here, what you're going to feel more of, again, squeeze in with the leg, turn the inner thigh back. You might feel that even up into your low back like we just did in that twist in a good way. And then lift your belly. Tighten the glute on the left, and then yes, you bend deeper into the front knee, again, without just pouring it all forward, right? So you're gonna feel its tone, while you stretch. It's a different sensation. So good. So come out of that. And then let's stand up one more time. I want you to come back to standing well here. Place that block between your thighs. And now does it make more sense, I hope, as you keep the lower legs steady. So you're not going to lock back at the knees, but really steady feet and lower legs, and turn the inner thighs back, which again, you'll feel that moving up into the low back, making a good curve there. But then pull your belly in, pull your ribs back in a balanced way, just like we've been laying on our backs. Because I'm sore, a little sore in my hip flexors, I feel what's happening there. You know, if I wasn't sore, I don't think I would feel the sensation so much, but I would feel that there's a clarity, right? An ability then to breathe deeper. I get a sense of grounding down. It's also postural neutral, right? You're also just in this postural neutral, that there's an ease to that, a very sweet ease and connectedness there. So then I want to show you one more pose you might see in a yoga class. With that said, we take a wide stance, just face whatever way you can see. We do a lateral stance. So turn your right foot open and get wide enough in your stance, back foot parallel or slightly turned in, and bend into your right. I'm going to mirror you, sorry. Now more like what you're doing, right? So bend into your right knee, forearm on your thigh. So again, what's happening up here? Legs strong. Turn the inner thighs back, especially on this back leg. Because if you're in a standing pose like this, that side angle pose, and you're just kind of dumping everything forward again, that's just all going to block all of that. So again, turn the inner thigh back, even make that strong, and lift your core in and up. And then push from your pelvis to your legs. Remember how we did there, and stretch to the top and past the air. So even this pose, though yes, you're feeling hip stretching, inner thigh, all the things, it's like really, you'll feel a nice psoas balance up that backside if it's done well. Come back up and we'll try the other side. So basically these alignment actions carry all the way through, no matter which one what we're doing here, right? So bend into the left knee. Again, you've knee over the ankle, pointing to the left. And so much is in the back leg, what's happening in the back leg. So the lower leg strong, and then move the inner right thigh back, sticking your butt out a little bit, and knowing it's more hollow. And then lift your core, lift your waistline. Pull your ribs back. Pull your ribs back without tucking your pelvis under. And then ground and lift and reach. And again, you might feel the stretch in the psoas here. If you're not feeling a stretch, you're just also strengthening the balanced relationship. That's important. Okay, so come back up slowly, feet straight ahead, and just step your feet together. All right, shake it off, just stand for a moment here. And then we'll lower down through table pose. Just come on down into a child's pose once again. So sit your hips to your heels, tone your belly in and up, and just fold in for a few breaths. Head can be on your block or on your blanket. Breathe down into those low ribs. Can you, as if inhale down even into the bowl of your pelvis, letting it widen more. That's a sense that, again, things have been released, unraveled. The inhale descends more with that. And then help yourself up and into a seat. We'll come onto our backs to rest. So take a moment to come on down. If you need to, we've done a lot to stretch out the back. In fact, here, instead of hugging your knees to your chest, which is okay for a moment of relief, but instead here, just building up the strength around your center with a balanced stretch. Spread your toes from feet to hips, engage, but push with your knees wide, push into your hands. And again, tip the sit bones down enough to where there's a little low back curve. Tone belly in, ribs in, throat back. And so you're setting yourself up at neutral spine. Put your feet on the floor, and let's move into Shavasana like this. Hips on the floor from that same place, that low back curved in. Side body's nice and long, and work the shoulder blades underneath you. So you feel neutral curves, support at the center, and then from there, walk the legs out, nice and long. And of course, some of us have more arched backs just in the way we're built. But I would say the answer to that isn't just, like, I don't recommend putting a blanket under your thighs. It just tips you back this way because it just kind of blocks this area. But we just want to create traction and length. It's okay if you need to smooth the body flesh a little bit down, that's fine. But make sure you still have a nice balanced curve in your spine. Nice long side body, shoulders underneath. And then just let your ribcage settle. If the low back is still uncomfortable because of a tight psoas, you could put a blanket under your knees. Now that's a better place if you need a little extra support, because that's going to just take some of the tension off of the tightness here without skewing so much the alignment of your pelvis and your thighs. But the tops of thighs can still settle back. Now when we relax on our backs, the legs will turn out. No worries, right? That's good. We want the legs to totally relax. But again, you may feel this greater sense of just downward release through the rim of the pelvis, downward to those inner thighs. Just setting so bound up here, just, yes, a release. And that does allow the back to relax more. You want the hips to feel heavy, the thighs to feel heavy, the low back, when it's balanced in relationship to the psoas, it's like it's light. There's a lightness off the floor. We don't want our low backs to feel heavy. We want our backs to feel light. The shoulder blades underneath and the chest a little bit lifted like that, it kind of tractions the whole spine there. So again, I know we're not together, and if you needed some help to get comfortable, I would love to help you with that. But mostly just get what you need here, and then rest. Rest and settle. Again, when the psoas releases, what that means is our stress releases. The exhale can fully release. And with that, we're able to receive the support of the ground beneath us. It's like our body actually releases down and into with gravity, a heaviness, a contact, a meeting and yielding into the ground more. You're not bound up and pulled up into your center, which is what happens when we're tight and energetically and muscularly tight. So that downward release, just feel that here, just feel the support of the ground beneath you. And if some of it's this sweet exhale, this full emptiness of the exhale, what you may also notice, and what is part of this, is that then also the inhale descends. The inhale can draw all the way down into the back of the ribs. Even subtly, it descends into the bowl of the pelvis as the diaphragm descends, the pelvic floor widens. Here's your resting that, that might be very subtle. But something to notice, because that is support, that is cosmic support. That is your support to the light, with the life force, with the vital energies. That are the intelligent forces that govern all of life. And when we feel that movement within us, we feel nourished, connected, in that flow, right? Instead of being bound up and stuck, which is when psoas and breath are stuck, it's like there's this release all back into the flow. What a gift. So I think what I'd like to do here is just give you the chance to continue to rest. Because you might be in a really sweet space and maybe you don't have anywhere to be just yet. Maybe you can linger. What a gift to have that time. So please, especially even those of you who said hello, so good to see you. Thank you for saying hello. Don't feel like you have to jump up to type anything in the chat box. Because if you're resting and enjoying your rest, please do. If you are ready to move out of your rest, I'll see you there. But you can always still comment on the video. I'll see your comments later. Or shoot me a note, anything you like. when you're ready to get up, and maybe not yet, but just good to sit up and maybe even sit for a few moments up on your folded blanket or block, just to feel the difference and to feel, even as you take your seat, whether it's now or in a few minutes, the difference, that you're settled in a new way through your hips, the breath settles. And give yourself this gift of having reconnected to the flow. Thank you for being here. Thanks, Julie. I'm so glad. That's great. You learned so much. So good. TLC Thursdays. I will keep this up. I'll post this to my YouTube page. So you can always find them all there. Next week will be our last Thursday of April. So our last TLC Thursday of April. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in May yet. We'll see what happens with all this online stuff. So if you have a request, let me know. Shoot me a note. If there's something you want to work on Thursday of next week, I would take your request and I will try to work on that. Okay. Thank you for being here. Take good care of yourself and be well. We'll close now. Goodbye.